I'm giving a quick intro to the video you're about to watch where I attempt to make a pull request to the p5.js project, and what I'm trying to add is the loadBytes feature. Now, all that will be explained in the video, but I ran into some debugging issues that are not really relevant for the pull request aspect of the video. So there's going to be some strange cuts in it of me where I did a lot of debugging in between. You're welcome to also check the video's description for the link to the full hour-and-a-half live stream, but hopefully this video is much shorter and you're going to get sort of like the essential parts of it, okay? Enjoy this pull request video. Hello, welcome to a special video that's part of my whole set of videos and things about contributing to open source. So in this video, I'm going to attempt to do something that's not very advisable because I'm doing this, and this is also a live stream that's going on right now, even though you might be watching this recorded. I am going to attempt to make a pull request to this project called p5.js. Now, if you don't know a lot about p5.js, I mean, if you watch any of my videos, you probably know something about it, but I encourage you to check out processingfoundation.org, p5js.org. All of those links are in this video's description. I, a while back, was creating a doodle classifier example based on the QuickDraw data set, and while I was doing that, I needed a function called loadBytes. Now, if I go to GitHub p5.js and I search this repository for a function called loadBytes, which the idea of this function is a function that I can call just like load JSON or load strings or load XML or load image, but what I want are just the raw bytes from a file, a digital file. If I search for this, you're going to find, it's nowhere in the code, it's nowhere in the commits, but there are a couple issues about it. One of which is here under finish file IO implementation. This is from 2013, right? It wasn't finished. And one is from me 12 days ago, implementation of loadBytes, because I filed this issue describing exactly what I'm talking about right now and published some code that accomplished it. Now, here's the thing. In the discussion here, there's some nice discussion here. LimZY Kenneth commented saying that using HTTP do, which is a function that's part of the P5 library, would be more consistent with the rest of the loading code. It's a nice to have. I'm going to submit this pull request without doing that, just with using my code that uses the native JavaScript HTTP request, because I don't want to, because using HTTP do is going to require adding and rewriting the HTTP do function as well, and I want to kind of keep the scope of this particular video small. Now, it might be that later, it might be that this pull request doesn't actually get merged into the project, or I resubmit in a different way, but let's just sort of see if we can at least make it happen using this code that I have, that loadBytes. And the other point of this, I want you to be able to watch this and not really care about what it means to load bytes and how this implementation works, just to see the process of adding some new code to kind of a large open source project that has all sorts of dependencies and build settings and things. Let's see if I can figure that stuff out while doing this. In theory, I should know how to do this, but even if I do know how, I'm probably going to get tripped up and have all sorts of problems. I can tell that's going to happen. So let me say a couple things first. Number one is this wiki is going to be really important. This is on the p5.js wiki /development. This is going to have some instructions that I'm going to need to follow to how to build the p5.js project, which I'm going to need to do to test the new code that I want to implement. And then also, I would highly recommend you check out this video series from Luisa Pereira, where she created a video series called Looking Inside P5. I believe there's a Spanish language and English language, and these videos go through in great detail with beautiful animation, drawings and animations, how the P5 library is structured and built. So that will give you an excellent background to what I am about to attempt to do. Okay. So what is the first thing that I need to do? So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go right here to p5.js, and I'm going to go over here to clone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start fresh. I certainly have on my computer the p5.js repository already. I work with it. I probably have different branches and forks. You know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to clone it. I am first going to hit fork. So what I want to do is work in my own fork. So I'm going to hit fork. And I want to fork this. Oh, look at this. Let's fork this to the coding train. And I'm going to fork this to the coding train. It's going to take a little bit of time. Oh, it already finished. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone, and this is good because even if this goes totally haywire, maybe I don't want to actually submit what I do here to the actual p5.js project. I just want this to be a little sandbox playground for me to learn about open source. So here we go. I'm going to grab this. Now, I'm going to clone from this particular URL. I'm using git at github.com because I have already done this crazy SSH key passphrase thing, which I would be happy to show in another video. If you haven't done that step, you might want to clone just using this, the HTTPS URL. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to hit copy, and then I'm going to go to my terminal where I am a weirdo who actually just uses the plain Mac terminal with no extra settings. I aspire to do better. I will do better someday. And I'm going to say git clone. Oh wait, first I got to see where I am. Sure, I'm going to go to the desktop. I'm just going to put this on the desktop. And now I'm going to say git clone that. So this is step one. Step one is clone the repository. Oh, it's already done. Okay, great. Now, I have cloned the repository. Step two, deep breath. Step three, change directory into the repository. And then I'm going to open up all the code in a text editor. And I'm going to use the Atom editor for that. I have my computer configured in such a way that I can type Atom dot and it opens Atom automatically. And so now you can see I have the entire p5.js project here. So first what I want to do is, can I even just build p5 the way that it is without making any changes to it, okay? I don't want to make any changes. I don't want to worry about my pull request and all that stuff. I just want to see if I can build it. So I'm going to go back now to this particular, and oh, I did this first step, right? Fork and clone, right? Fork and clone, fork and clone. I did that. Now I'm going to, oh, I did cd npm install. So npm node package manager install is a command that's going to, I have to have node installed on my computer. Check out my videos about node.js, but I'm going to use node to install all the other libraries and other things that p5, the library itself, depends on. So I'm going to say npm install. Now I'm really definitely going to have to wait. Oh, it finished. Okay. That was 33 seconds, and we added 1,584 hooks. And people are saying in the chat, what about yarn? You know, someday I'll, you know me, I'd like to kind of like live in the past for a little while. So I'm using, yarn is another package manager that you could use instead of npm. And apparently it's like faster and better for some reason. Now, okay, to create the complete library from source, run grunt. So one thing that I should emphasize here is that when I go look at the code, like where do I actually want to change the code somewhere, right? I want to add the loadBytes function. And all the code for p5 is all here. Color, core, data, events, I/O, input, output. Probably the code for loadBytes should go in I/O. And if I look here and I go down, files.js, maybe that's where it is. Let's look at files.js, and you can see here, is there like a, load.json is here. So load.json is here in files.js. So I just need to add p5.prototype.loadBytes to add that function. But the thing is, if you've ever used the p5 library, right, you don't have like a directory of all of these. You just have that p5.js file or that p5.min.js file. So there is a build process. It would be unreasonable to try to develop this big library all from one file and to be like, oh, I want to add something to it. Let me go to line 72,421. So everything's broken out into separate files, and then there's a build process. The build process happens with, where am I here? Via this other tool called grunt. What's grunt? Grunt JavaScript. Let's look for that. The JavaScript task runner. So grunt is a task runner that you could configure to do a lot of things like run all the unit tests, check the linting for style, put all these files all together, minify it, all that kind of stuff that I have some video tutorials about in my GitHub series and my linting and testing series, but basically all the kinds of things that you might do with a JavaScript project, Grunt is something that can allow you to sort of sequence all of that. And a lot of this work was done by Sakshem Saxena for last year's Google Summer of Code 2017. We did a lot of work to improve the infrastructural aspects and operations of the P5 library itself, so all the sort of build stuff. So let's try now and see, can we run npm run grunt? And let's see what happens. Oh, this is exciting. So let's see if I can talk through the things that it's doing. Oh, ooh, okay, so what am I missing? Oh, I just said, I just need to say npm run grunt. I just typed npm grunt. If I type npm grunt, it goes like this. All right, here we go. So it's running grunt. It's building some docs and the reference. Then it's running the min task. It's running some sort of typewriter. It's building it. It's linting it. It's testing it. All sorts of, oh, exciting stuff is happening. Oh, it's running Browserify, which is something that people do. And it's running Uglify, which is also something, but it's doing all these different tasks. And boy, wouldn't it be nice, Mocha, to go through. It's, oh, look at the little kitty cat, and it's running all the unit tests. The value of x is 10. Boy, this is going to take a really long time. False, false. So it's going to take a really long time to do all this. I think probably I'll just be back in a second when it's done. It's complete, and it passed. Everything passed. It was done without errors. So now we can start to add our own code to it. Now maybe I want to like I'm going to make a branch. So I think I don't know. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to say git branch load bytes. I don't know if it's called fix or add load bytes add. That's a good name for the branch. I think I'm going to add load branch. Maybe I should call it add load bytes. Okay. So I'm going to create that branch, and then I'm also going to check out that branch. So now working on the code, I'm in a different branch, which is going to be helpful for me later when I want to compare, pull request, send that code. There's a lot of stuff that I'm kind of, this isn't like, if this is the first video you're ever watching about Git or GitHub or open source, a lot of this is going to be unfamiliar to you. Hopefully you can pause here and find some of the background links and come back. But okay, so I'm in a separate branch now. All right, now I'm just going to go to the code. I'm going to write some code. Code. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to write some code. I'm really stressed out. All right, so here's the thing. Let me give myself a little bit more room here. One thing that's interesting to note about P5 is look at what is all this stuff? Oh my goodness, there's this is just the load JSON function. First there's these comments, then there's some crazy notation here. There's this looks like an example. So there's a lot that I need to do just to add load bytes beyond just the load bytes function itself, because I need to also make sure I include the documentation. And eventually I'm going to want to also probably add an example to the website and all sorts of other stuff. But let's do one step at a time. I think what might help us actually, amazingly, is let's use this load JSON implementation as a template. So I'm actually going to copy everything from load JSON like this. And I'm going to put it, I don't know if there's a correct order. I'm going to put it at the bottom. I'm going to put it at the end because I'm going to put it after. Look at me, I'm just scrolling like a crazy person. I'm going to add it before HTTP do, and I'm going to add it before HTTP post. Oh, this is very silly what's going on now. HTTP get. Load XML. So I'm going to add it after load XML, after load XML and before HTTP get. That feels like a good place to put it. I paste this in here. Now, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I'm in the right place. This is the load JSON function, and it's right after the XML one. Okay, so now I really need to rewrite this quite a bit, and I need to make this a little smaller. Can you still see this? Is this too small for you now? I think I'll survive here. Loads a binary file from a URL and returns an object with a bytes property containing a, so what is it that it's containing when my loadBytes function? If I run the loadBytes function, it actually creates this with this uint8 array. Okay, 8 array. Note that even if the JSON file contains an array and object, so this is irrelevant. This method is asynchronous, meaning it may not finish before the next line in your sketch. Okay, don't need JSON P, so that can be removed. Now the method is called loadBytes. The parameter is a string, which is name of the file or the URL to load, object. So I don't think I have the JSON P stuff that I don't need, a callback and an error callback. So I want a string, a callback, and an error callback. Function to be executed after loadBytes completes. Data is passed in as its first argument. Function to be executed if there is an error. Response is passed in as the first argument. That makes sense. Return an object. It only returns an object because the object has contains a uint array bytes field property. I'm going to say property. And then I'm going to say calling loadBytes inside preload guarantees to complete the operation before we set up and draw is called. That is the case. Now there's an example here. Unfortunately, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take out the example. Maybe I can add one in later, but I'm just going to say to do add example. And then outside of preload, add example with preload. Outside of preload, you may supply a callback function to handle the object, to handle the data, I'm going to say. And then what I'm going to do here, I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to say to do add example with callback. Wonder why it's syntax highlighting. Oh, because it's inside of this. Oh, maybe this will just do. Oh yeah, this is all I need to do. Okay. So this, all I need to do is add, sorry, I need to put this in comments. I'm trying to figure out what it's expecting. It's expecting JavaScript code here, which I don't have ready to put. So I'm going to put this to-do note with a JavaScript comment. Okay. What is this alt? Oh, this is alt text. I think this is like left over from something that's not exactly right. So this is a mistake, I think. I need to like take a look at this. I'm going to leave that there, but this I don't think is right. Let me come back to that. Okay, now I'm going to get my code. So I'm going to change this to loadBytes. And I'm going to go now to the code that I wrote another time. And I've been sort of mucking around with it, trying a few different things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this bit by bit. I'm going to just take out, I was playing around with HTTP-do, I'm going to take that out. So I'm going to grab my code, which is this, and I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to leave this stuff here. So you're going to see why in a second. Because I actually, what I want to retain this check for the data type argument. So this is some code from loadBytes, which is checking to see, here's an argument. If it's a string, I don't need to worry about this JSON P stuff. So if it's a function and there is no callback, then it becomes the callback. Otherwise, it's the error. And I can get rid of this. And I can say, path should always be arguments index 0. So this is actually, this is probably more complex than it needs to be. So I don't know if this is really necessary, but I'm going to leave this like this. So this is saying like, oh, this is already there. You know what? I'm going to say, yeah, I'm going to do this. So this is a nice way. I'm going to leave it like this. This is a way of just checking, are there additional arguments? If so, put them in the right place. Then I don't want to do this anymore. What I want to do is my own, loadBytes code, which is this. And I'm going to paste that in here. Now the difference is I wrote my code with a variable called data, and the convention in P5 is return. So I want to say var return equals an empty object, and then when the data comes in, I'm going to say return.bytes equals that array. I'm going to do the callback, and then I also need to, how do I have an error? So on request dot on error, this is my guess. Lowercase on error, but I'm being told that maybe lowercase on error actually works. So let's see if this is a function. HTTP XML HTTP request on error. Yeah, there's an on error. There we go. Equals callback. So that should work. We're going to test all this stuff before I submit a pull request. Don't worry. Okay, so now I think I've written my code. I'm happy with it. I don't have the examples, but I have the stuff that's needed for the documentation. I have a little description. I am missing something though. Weirdly enough, the way that P5 works when you have a function that it supports preload is I also need to register that function with loadBytes. Register that function with preload. So this has to go somewhere. Register preload method. Now where does that go? Does that actually just go, is that in this? No. So where does that happen in the P5 library? Let's go back to the P5 repository and search for register preload method. And let's look for code. Oh, it's in core. Preload methods. Let's see. Yep, it's here. It's in core. So what I need to do is add it to this list. You can see there's no loadBytes in this list. So I also need to go to core, which is here under core, core.js. Let me look for load.json and find that here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it right here. Is this in alphabetical order? No. I don't know that there's a particular logic to this order, so I'm just going to put it right after load XML. I'm going to say loadBytes. I'm being told there might be a bug in the way that I called the callback. Thank you for that. So let me go back to files.js, go back to my loadBytes, and I am calling the callback with data, which I renamed based on the P5 convention to RET. Okay, so I think that's good. All right. So look, we did it. We're done. Goodbye. I'll see you later. No. There's so much more to do. I think I have written all the code for adding the loadBytes function to P5. Now I've missed two important things. One is I haven't finished writing the example documentation, and two, it's possible, as in that thread, that GitHub issue thread, this isn't perhaps the ideal implementation of loadBytes, but it hopefully at least is one that works. So now what I'm going to do is, guess what I'm going to do? I'm just going to run again npm run grunt. So let's just rebuild P5. I also haven't written any tests. So I'll be back when this is done. Okay, this is good. So this is no surprise. There's no way I could have done that without getting any errors. So I got some sort of error. ESLint source failed. So what did I do? I wrote on, so I have some code that doesn't work, that doesn't fit the styles defined by the P5 open source library. Oh boy, there's a lot of stuff. Oh no, something bad has happened. I forgot. I have Atom Beautify package installed, and it happens anytime I hit Command S, it reformats all of my code with some styles defined by my Atom Beautify, which don't match up with the p5.js library. Whew. So I got to undo out of this. I did undo. Sorry, I was confused. So I undo out of that and save it. Now I've got to go to files.js. Now, unfortunately, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do something a little bit insane, which is that I'm going to grab my loadBytes function. So I don't care if there are errors that I need to fix there. I'm going to grab my loadBytes function. I'm going to hit Command X to get rid of it. Then I'm going to undo. I'm going to do undo all the way back to how this file was originally. Go away, all my changes. Wow, I made a lot of changes. This is insane. It's a good thing I know. I could use git stash. I probably should just use git stash to like stash all that. Now, okay, now I'm going to hit save. Now this is, if I do git diff, I have made no changes to the p5 library. I'm going to make those changes again. I'm going to paste in my loadBytes function. I'm going to hit save. Now I'm going to go to core.js. I told you this would go awry. And I'm going to look for load.json. And I'm going to add in my loadBytes function. No beautifying is going to happen this time. LoadBytes. And I'm going to hit save. And now we can see core.js has changed. You can see by that Adam changed the color, and files.js have changed, but Beautify didn't run, I hope. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to try to run this again, and hopefully, I'm sure I'm going to be back. There'll be some other error. You'll see me in a minute when the next error comes up. I am back with more linting errors, but at least there are only these linting errors in files.js. So what does it say? Path is assigned a value but never used. I forgot. Like I've made mistakes in my code here. That this is so good that it has linting, because I created this variable called path, but then here I'm using file. This needs to be path. This definitely needs to be path here. So that was a mistake. I'm tempted to just run this again, just to do one fix at a time. More linting errors. Replace get with get. So it wants me to use single quotes. I agree with you. Thank you, P5, for making my dreams come true. This should probably be single quotes as well. Okay, so now that's good. Let's run it again. I probably could run just the command for linting separately, like instead of doing run grunt the whole time. Okay, another linting error. Insert a semicolon, line 752, line 752. Oh, really? Really? Okay, all right. Hey, you want a semicolon there? Yeah, it's the end of this onload being equal to. Is it going to want another one? Yeah, oh yeah, like I have one here. That makes sense. Okay, I'll buy that. I'll buy that. Semicolon. All right, one more. Let's see if it gets past it. Let's see if it gets past the linting. Okay, I'm told to be request for the music. Oh, nope. All right, it didn't get past it. We've got one more. On REQ is not defined. Oh, I just have a total typo. I have this as ONREQ when the variable's name is OREQ. So this, by the way, is good evidence. I have a linting tutorial, by the way, that is out. You can go check out my tutorial about linting. This is why having linting, especially with an open source library, is good. I might have, I probably would have tested this, at least tried to run an example before I submitted the pull request, but this has really helped me clean out and fix a whole bunch of things. Thank you, p5.js, and your linting configuration. Let's try this one more time. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like it's going to make it all the way through. Okay, look, it built. No errors. I have actually now completely rebuilt the entire p5.js library with my new code. All the tests passed, with the caveat that I didn't actually write any tests for loadByte. But at least I didn't break anything else that's in existing tests. No linting errors. My code style is right. Didn't complain at me that I'm missing something important. So I can feel somewhat confident that I've done something that's reasonable. Now, let's look. Let's see. Okay, so let's go into lib. So the built file is actually, you can't see it here because it's actually in my Atom editor is configured not to show me files that are in git.ignore, but I can actually go here and open it up manually. File open lib. This is the new p5.js library that I have now built manually. And there's also this empty example. This is wonderful because I'm going to be able to now mess around in this empty example folder to test, to sort of manually test to see if the code works. So I'm going to open this up and we can see, we can look, this has been built on March 12th. That's today, 2018. And I can look, like I can do a find. Now Adam might complain at me because it's a really big file, but I can look for loadBytes. Look at this. There's loadBytes. That's not in P5, the code. There's another loadBytes. There's another loadBytes. There's a loadBytes is there. And look at this. Here it is. The loadBytes method actually on line 59,000 something, 575. So this is now a version of P5 library. It's not released. It's not merged. It's not part of the actual P5 project yet, but it did work to build a library. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this empty example. Now this empty example, you'll notice, points to those new built library files. So I can start to test that code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to terminal here, and I'm going to, where am I? I am in p5.js. I'm going to go into lib. I'm going to go into empty example. I'm going to run a little server just so I can sort of see, oh, there's already a server running. Let me run a server on a different port. Then I'm going to go to the browser. And now I can see, okay, didn't find these files. Let's think about this. Oh, you know why? Because I've got to go, I need to run the server. I need to run the server from this directory, right? Because empty example points to these files. So let me run the server from this directory and go to empty example. Now let's just see. I'm in empty example. Let me do some stuff like create canvas, 400, background 0. I won't make this part of my commit. I don't want the empty example to be part of what I commit, but I'm just messing around the code here just to test. So here we go. I can see, okay, so stuff is running. Now here is the real test. Let me just write the loadBytes function in setup. Okay, this is good. That's an error I want. If loadBytes didn't exist as the P5 library, it would have gotten an error saying, I don't know what loadBytes is. So now I can kind of go, I have some test code on my desktop where I have a data file. This is a binary file with 1,000 cat drawings. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go to empty examples. I'm going to say show in Finder. And I'm going to go to empty examples, and I'm going to paste that in. So now I have a binary file there. I want to see so that binary file is there. And what I want to try doing is I want to say loadBytes cats 1000.bin. So let's just see if I get any error there. No error. This is a good sign. Now, here's the thing. Function, let me put this in preload. So did my preload integration work? Var data, I'm just going to be ES5 for today, equals loadBytes. I'll say let, because that's how I can't say var anymore. LoadBytes, and then I'm going to say console log data. So let's make sure this works. Great. The data is there. That's the correct amount of data. Looking at some of the numbers, I can see that this makes sense. Knowing what this file is, this is the right kind of stuff. There's a lot of black pixels and then some gray and white outlines. So this looks like it's working. And just to make sure preload is really doing what it should, right? It's empty there, but by the time it gets to setup. Now, what if I take this here and put it in setup? Now this shouldn't work, because I'm no longer using preload, right? I'm no longer using preload, so it's empty, but I can add a callback. I can say got data, and I can write a function called got data with an argument data. So this is the callback, and I don't need to set it equal to anything anymore. So this should now, I don't need this draw function. It's nice that that was there. So this should now work. I can see the data is there. That's good. And then I also want to, let's test the error. I'll call it got error. So I have to make an error happen. Let's see if I can think about how to do that. So let me console.log the error. So let's see. So there shouldn't be no error happen. That's good. What if I change the name of the file? There we go. Sketch. So interestingly enough, oh, this is a problem. So it called got error, sketch.js. No, it didn't. It passed the error into got data. So I have a mistake. I'm pausing this video because what happens next is me spending like a really long time trying to figure out what to do with error codes and the error callback. And that's not really relevant to the pull request aspect. If you want to see that part, check the video description for the whole hour-and-a-half live stream. But I'm just going to jump now to the part where I figure out what to do with the error codes and continue. All right? Hope you're enjoying this video and you keep watching. Maybe. Bye-bye. Okay, it's done. Let's do some more checks. Okay, so let's see here. Let me check now my empty example again. Let's just first see if it works correctly. So I've got the got data and the got error callback. So I am now going to check the example. And we can see, okay, it works if I give it a nice binary file. If I give it the wrong file name, great, it gives me an error. That's what I want. The callback never happens because there is nothing to get. File not found. That's what I want. Let's see if I give it a URL that doesn't exist. What does that do? All right. Oh, it got a 404 and it also got a no. So this is fine. And it got an error. So that's fine. I'm getting everything I want with the error callback. Maybe I want something more specific here, but I'll leave this here. And then what I'm going to do is let me check preload again. Let me just check, make sure preload is not broken. And so I'm going to say function preload. And let data equals loadBytes with this made up URL. And let's say, let's console log the data. Okay, so now I just want to check preload. This is the preload code let me check it first with an actual correct file. Whoops, oh, I don't want to console log the string data. I want to console log the data. Perfect. Now let me check it with a file that doesn't exist. Hangs, and this is what P5 does natively. It hangs if the file doesn't exist. It doesn't keep going. So that's what it should be doing. And then if I get a CORS error, a cross-origin resources, like I try to access some URL, great, perfect. Not found and that error. So this is all perfect. This is exactly what I wanted to do. My tests have passed. Guess what? I'm pretty much done. That was a very loud bell. Okay. So now, what happens now? I want to say git status just to see what's going on in the repository. So, whoa. Where am I here? Modified, oh yeah, sorry. So I've modified a bunch of things. I modified empty example sketch.js. That's not part of the work that I'm doing. I've modified core.js. That is part of the work I'm doing. I modified files.js. That's the work that I'm doing. I've added this weird binary file. That's just for my own testing. I don't want to deal with that. So what I want to do now is I want to say git add source core.js. Because I want to add these changes to core.js. Then I want to add source io files.js. Okay? Then what I want to do is I want to say git commit. Oh boy, it's going to run something for me. Wow, so and now, Ooh, it is giving me, now I can write my commit message. Okay, implementing loadBytes. This is relevant to issue 2674. So then I'm going to write this pull request. I'm not going to say pull request. This commit adds the loadBytes function to p5.js as demonstrated during a live stream on the coding train. There are some remaining issues here. For example, there are no tests. And I am also not using HTTP do, which would be more of the convention here for P5 as discussed in issue 2674. I am also handling errors like 404 or cores in perhaps an odd way and would be happy for any feedback. Okay, so this is my nice long commit message. And what I'm going to do is I'm now going to, so I have my git commit tied to Atom. So I can write a nice long thoughtful commit message. This will all be ignored. This is just information for me. I'm going to hit close. And now I'm going to look at terminal, and the commit has been made to the add loadBytes branch. And now I'm going to say git remote -v. So the remote that this is tied to is the coding train fork. So I can say, I'm going to say git push origin load, what did I call this branch? Git branch, add loadBytes, git push origin, add loadBytes. So I'm going to push, if I had made this to master, by the way, I could have said push my changes to master to a new branch called add loadBytes. But since I'm in a branch already, I'm going to say git push origin, add loadBytes. I forgot dear diary. Should I amend? I definitely think I need to amend that. I forgot. Okay. So here we go. I pushed it there. Now I'm going to go to my fork. Where is it? So many things open. I'm going to hit refresh. And look at this. Less than a minute ago, I pushed this add loadBytes branch. I can now do compare and pull request. I'm going to do it. Compare and pull request. I might as all right. So this is now saying, hey, I want to pull request add loadBytes from coding train /p5.js to processing p5.js base master. And then I think what I want to do is I want to suggest some reviewers. So Kenneth Lim should definitely be a reviewer. Kenneth Lim posted some great comments. I don't know if, I should definitely add something. So when I did my commit message, it had these like line breaks in it, which are bothering me here. And I also want to add some formatting like this. The backticks to format this. I should say a thanks to for this branch, which was a nice reference for me. So I just want to add a little thank you here too. And I'm going to go back to my code where I kept this URL to remember it. And then I'm going to write, it's okay if this doesn't get merged. Hopefully doing this on a live stream was helpful to somebody. All right, so now we're going to look and see, like, look, there's the change I made. Here's the loadBytes function. Oh, also example code is missing. Finally, I am not using, so I'm rewriting my message. Dear diary, sincerely yours, the coding train. Okay, so let's now go back and say preview. And this can actually, because of the nice way that it's rendering, this can just go like this. Let's read this over. Implementing loadBytes 264. Dear diary, this commit adds the loadBytes function to p5.js as demonstrated during a live stream on the coding train. There are some remaining issues here. For example, they're under tests. Also, example code is missing. Finally, I'm not using HTTP do, which is more of a key convention for P5 as discussed. I'm also handling errors like 404 in perhaps an odd way, blah, 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 thanks, blah, 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 blah. It's okay. It's okay if this doesn't get merged. Hopefully doing this on a live stream was helpful to somebody. Okay. All right. I think we're ready, everybody. I think we've now come to the end of this video. Drum roll, please. We are going to create the pull request. And that was a 73-hour and 42-minute video of me attempting to submit a pull request to p5.js live on YouTube.